Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Turron Davenport, Parker Kelley with you on this Thursday morning. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We've got TD in for a little bit today. Titans are practicing over at Vanderbilt Health Sports Park. First open OTA, and Robert Saleh will speak to the media later this morning. But glad to have TD in for a little bit here. Thanks for coming in.
That's right. It's a tiny TD Thursday.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's all good.
I love it. A tiny TD Thursday today. We'll try and get into a bunch of stuff with TD before he has to get over there for Robert Saleh's press conference. TD, first thing this week, of course, Super Bowl coming to Nashville in 2030. I know you were out there at the event last night. They had the concert, the fireworks, the drone show, everything. It's been really cool to see the rollout the last few days after the announcement that the Titans and Nashville are getting the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I forgot the way this city puts on, just slightly, just because. So that event, I got out there around 7. It's raining. There's probably about 30 people there. But then Marty Smith finally came out maybe an hour later, and the rain subsided, and I tell you, it was from the stage right there all the way up to almost 4th Avenue.
Yep.
Just packed with people. And I'm just like, man, this is this city. I love the way our city puts out, man. It's dope.
My wife went down there and was going to stay, and then the rain came down early, and she said, you know what? I'm just going to go home. It's not worth it. But I did see it look like, even despite the rain, it was a pretty good crowd.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about it a ton this week, but it is just it's surreal to think Nashville is going to have a Super Bowl in 3.5 years. And the stadium, based on what we've seen, is surely going to be state of the art and going to be ready for that event. And now the city's just got to gear up and get ready for what is going to be a crazy Super Bowl week here in Music City. Yeah,
it's going to be a really just a dope week. And I love the fact that everything's walkable. You know what I mean?
Right.
You got a sand amphitheater right there. You can have stuff there. Bridgestone Convention Center. The stadium is just across the bridge. A cool walk over the pedestrian bridge. Everything is there. The hotels. Buku restaurants.
Yeah.
This city is going to kill that Super Bowl. I can't wait. Now, there's only so many things that you could do, so I'm not going to say it's going to be the best Super Bowl ever.
Right.
But it's going to be a Super Bowl to remember, because people want to come here and have fun, because this city is a destination city.
And Nashville knows it has to kill it if it wants to get into that regular rotation, especially with the options for a Super Bowl getting so much wider, right? In the past, it was only really a handful of cities that could
Miami,
actually
New
handle
Orleans,
it with
Atlanta,
weather and dome stadiums. But with so many new stadiums being built, you have to separate yourself a little bit. And Nashville obviously has been very good at that in the past and what they've been able to do. So excited for the Super Bowl. I know it's still a long way away, but really cool to see the announcement and everything that's come with it this week. TD, of course, our big music guy. Who's your halftime show? Who would it be?
Well, I'm going to do a compilation. What I'm going to do, Jelly Roll is going to be the feature artist.
Okay.
And I'm going to roll out Taylor Swift. I'm going to roll out Morgan Wallen, and a surprise performance. I'm going to have my guys. I like to make
there we go. Yeah.
I'm going to have my guys, MCD and A West.
I like that.
Just
little
come out
Tennessee
and
pimping at the Super Bowl.
Pimping, that's all. or this is for my city. That's just a little put my guys on the map.
I like it. That was on Monday. We were working through what we thought was going to be good. And I do think a compilation is the best way they could showcase Nashville in general, because it's Music City. There's not one artist that represents the city completely. Now, I do think if Taylor Swift was to say yes, I think it would be Taylor Swift.
I look, exactly. She is.
People have been speculating for years that she was going to do it, and Nashville just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I know Jelly Roll's music. I'm going to be inclined to go Jelly Roll. No offense to Taylor Swift, but you got to get her in there. So
I think there's so many good options, and obviously that's something that, will be worked out. Probably summer of 2029 is when they'll actually figure that out. But going to be fun leading up 3 more seasons, and then the Super Bowl is coming to Nashville. Some other news yesterday, TD. We had talked since Chad Brinker stepped away of whether the Titans would replace his role, have somebody step in to take on the other football responsibilities other than personnel, which Mike Borgonzi handles. And they did make a hire yesterday. Dave Gardy, who is with the Commanders, comes in, and he is the executive vice president of football operations and will report directly to Mike Borgonzi. So it shows you that I guess the Titans weren't just blowing smoke when they said that the job of GM needs to be separated. These responsibilities have to be handled by somebody else, and they bring somebody in to replace Chad Brinker.
Yeah, so unlike what a collection of local media that like to swim in the mud suggested, the Chad Brinker position wasn't created because of a quote-unquote deficiency or incompetency of Rand Carthon. Pretty interesting how, and that's what I love about time and the truth. Over time, the truth will reveal itself. And that's what happened yesterday, because this position, now granted, in this position is very clearly stated that executive vice president is going to report to Mike Borgonzi. But I think it was good on the Titans to show continuity and just show that, hey, look, what we did before was something we're serious about. And obviously when I'm saying we, I'm saying from their perspective, not we, including me. So understand that. But I believe that the way they're looking at this is that single position, a general manager, is too broad and all encompassing. They want, hey, look, we're going to streamline this for you. And what's your job to do is to oversee the roster, the coaching staff, etc. I like it.
I agree. I think if you have a football mind that you trust as your general manager, let him focus on football. And I know that Dave Gardy, it's football related, all the things that he's going to be looking over. But I want my general manager's main focus to be scouting, the coaching staff, the players you currently have, trades, all that kind of stuff that directly relates to the 53 guys on the roster and the coaching staff. I don't want him worrying about facilities and travel and all the other stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, exactly. All the logistics, with the trips and things like that. I'm sure there's going to be a trip abroad, so that's going to be more logistics to concern yourself with. But the thing that's good about Gardy is he's well-versed in analytics. He worked in the league office. He has over 10 years in the league. Actually, over 21 years in the league office, because before he was actually in the league office, he helped advise a lot of teams, competition committee, CBA, and some of those things. So you're getting a guy that is very well, and he's very well versed when it comes to the rule book and those things, officiating.
Yeah,
you need all of that, all of it. So it's a solid hire, just outside looking in.
And I think you just continue to look at the emphasis on experience. And I know just doing something doesn't make you good at it, but you just look up and down this front office and coaching staff, and there's just so much experience in their field, whether it's, I mean, Mike Borgonzi, of course, first-time general manager, but you have Dave Ziegler, you have Reggie McKenzie, now you have Dave Gardy, who has a ton of experience, whether it's with the league office or with a team. Coaching staff is littered with experience, and I think it's really nice to see that this team has guys that it feels like you can trust in positions of power at this point.
Right, and that's the word, trust. Any relationship that's worth something has trust.
Right.
And if you're able to have that, then you could do some good things. And look, I mean, we know this organization has had a lot of turnover, and trust is something that comes, with time working together.
Yeah.
So if they could get time on task, I think this thing is just going to get better, but you have to give it a chance to evolve and to grow and mature.
And I think you hope that hiring these types of people means Amy Adams Strunk is handing it off and saying, you know what, I trust you guys. You are my football people, and you are going to handle the football team. Now, I would like to hear her speak, and I know that was a big thing yesterday. Burke Nihill spoke on her behalf at the Super Bowl announcement, and I think fans do deserve to hear from her every now and again, especially when she makes big decisions like she has in the last few years. But I do think, at least on the outside looking in, it looks like she is trying to hand it off to her football people and find people that she trusts and says, all right, you go run it, which is a step in the right direction from some of the more hands-on approach that she's taken over the past few years.
Well, that's the whole thing, Jake. And that poor woman, she's damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, because we all are faced with this at some point. Well, we got to find the balance. We got to figure out what's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In every relationship. But in this case, she has to understand what you just said. The fans do like to hear from you from time to time.
Right.
Even if it's just a statement, something, right? And what I would like for them to do, if you don't want to just have an outright press conference, if one of us requests, fill the request.
Yeah.
How hard, and it's funny because Nick Suss and I were talking about this last night. How hard is it to speak in front of a tape or even just give a statement?
Right.
Like, it's not hard.
Or even, she did the sit down with Mike Keith after they fired Mike Vrabel. Obviously the canned in-house video isn't the best. Like, all of those questions are pre-screened, all that kind of stuff. But at the very least, you're an owner in a time of turmoil and talking to your fan base and trying to give an explanation.
Exactly.
Which she hasn't done since that video, I don't believe.
Exactly. So I think really it's just finding a balance. And hopefully for her sake, for the fans' sake, for the media's sake, for everyone's sake, she's able to do that. But look, I'm not going to pull punches. She's done a great job with this organization, getting this stadium in order. I know taxpayers and I know there's a lot of politics behind it that people are upset about.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is you have a stadium coming. You have a Super Bowl coming. You have 15,000 hotel rooms coming. There's this economy locally will be impacted positively. And then not to mention the things that they do within the community. You look up a player and you'll see their organization doing something and the Titans themselves. So
yeah, well, 100%. I think Amy Adams-Strunk surely deserves a lot of blame for the way that the organization has trended over the past few years on the field. But I think you also have to look at the way the organization has trended overall in the past decade and a half since she took over. And there's been a lot of progress there. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll get to some of your reaction and get TD's thoughts on OTAs, which opened earlier this week. And TD will be out there as the practice is open to the media today. See what he wants to see from the Titans as they begin their offseason program. We are off and running on this Thursday morning. Got TD for just a little bit longer. Jake Lyman, Turron Davenport, Parker Kelley. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025, the game. Jake Lyman, Turron Davenport, Parker Kelley with you. Parker had one shot at it, so he went with your Super Bowl halftime headliner, Jelly Roll.
This song right here, man. So just recently have I been able to hear this song and not like cry. Even I'm tearing up now like they're forming, but man, that's a great selection right there. He knows how to play on your heartstrings with his music, man. So great selection right there. That's a song right there that anybody can relate to.
Yeah.
And yeah, dope pick.
And Tavondre Sweat sang it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With Jelly Roll.
How about
that's
it?
true. I forgot about that.
Maybe he could come back and sing it on the season opener.
Yeah,
huh?
there you go. I'm a lost cause.
Right.
We hope that's what the Jets are singing. We got one more segment with TD before he's got to get over there to OTAs. You said so. Robert Saleh speaking and some select players as well. And then open practice. So going to be a good opportunity to get your first look. I know that you guys have been out there before for some of the rookie mini camp and seen some of this stuff, but really your first look at Robert Saleh and this coaching staff setting the foundation for this Titans team.
Right. I think that's really the thing to look at. I want to see, his energy.
Yeah.
I want to see, is that really the type of energy that exudes to the players, right? The way I've had people, from the Jets and 49ers tell me. So I want to see that. I want to see they're going to have rotations. I want to see who's the first center and who's the first right guard.
That is exactly what I was going to say. Is that's the one thing that I want to hear coming out of practice today is who is first up on the offensive line, because that's the one position on this entire team where it's like you don't really know who the starter is going to be.
Yeah. So I definitely want to see that. What else? Wan'Dale Robinson and Carnell Tate, their timing with Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a short session. It's it's one practice that we'll see, but you could see some things. I want to see the way Gunnar Helm is attacking being tight end one now, right?
Yeah.
What's the deal with Femi? How is he going to look?
Right.
What are they working on with him? There's so many things. Alante Taylor, I personally believe he's a nickel, but Marcus Harris is a nickel they really like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of flown under the radar, but that is something. So there's a whole lot. Even Cam Ward throwing.
Yeah.
I want to see Brian Daboll. I hope Cam Ward messes up today.
Yeah.
I hope he does. Because I want to see Daboll. I want to see that interaction, how that works. You know what I mean? There's so many things to look at. Greg Lewis, I loved watching him in 2016. I want to see when he was with the Eagles coaching the receivers there.
Yeah.
I want to see. I got to talk to him a little bit at our rookie mini camp, and he's excited to be here. So there's a whole lot.
There's a lot of storylines. Some that you mentioned, the second year guys, Femi and Marcus Harris, guys that I think the fan base isn't thinking about top of mind. Yeah. But every time this coaching staff has had an opportunity to bring up Femi or Marcus Harris unprompted, like it's not like the question is what's Femi going to do this year. It's asking about who's going to play the wide nine. And Robert Saleh brings up Femi Oladeja. You bring up Marcus Harris in the slot, or in the nickel. I want to know what those guys are. They going to be impact players for this team this year? Because there's no guarantees based on what we saw last year.
Yeah, and I tell you what else is pretty interesting, Jake. It is when you look at the nickel position and what Saleh has said. Right, he talked about having a semi linebacker. He talked about having a Nick Ebenworry type. They had shots to draft Nick Ebenworry types. But when I asked about that in a follow-up to PK's question about this team not drafting the DB for the first time in a lot of years, he said, well, let's remember Marcus Harris is one of the bigger nickels that Robert Saleh has had. And I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Of course, last year he had Upton Stout, the Western Kentucky kid who I really liked, but we're talking 5'9". Yeah. A small kid. But I didn't even think to the nickels before then. But there was what was the nickel's name? It's going to come back to me. The nickel that he had with the 49ers when he first left to go to the Jets, he was one of the best in the league, and he comped very well to Marcus Harris.
Let me see.
I think it starts with an A. Oh man, I forget his name, but he was a really good nickel.
It's annoying they don't list them. They're listing them in their base defense here on Football Reference.
Let me see.
This is their 2020 roster. Akello Witherspoon.
No, not
No?
Akello Witherspoon.
Oh no, yeah, he's 6'2".
Let me see. There's a list of DBs.
These are the DBs here. This is from 2020. It may not be the right year. Let me see. I can go to 2021.
I'll look at it. I'll look at it.
But no, I get what you're saying, though, of like Marcus Harris, maybe somebody that we overlooked as somebody who could fit well into this defense with Robert Saleh. And I'm excited to see what he's able to do this year. Femi, of course, and Terry McCormick reported he's going to work with the Freak during mini camp and training camp. So that'll be great as well. Did you see the Gus Bradley mic'd up yesterday?
Yeah.
That dude brings the energy. He was fired up, yelling at Brian Dable. He was yelling at Wan'Dale Robinson. I believe he was yelling at Greg Lewis.
He's going to let everybody have
it. Somebody threw an interception to Amani Hooker earlier this week based on that video. Couldn't see if it was Cam Ward or Mitch Trubisky or whoever it was, but somebody threw an interception to Amani Hooker. I agree with you on that point of I'm excited to see what the coaching staffs, just what it all looks like. Robert Saleh and Gus Bradley on the defensive side, but also Brian Dable and Shea Tierney working with Cam Ward. We're going to talk a little bit later on in the show about Derek and David Carr. They did a film review of Cam Ward's rookie year and talked about some of the things that they believe Brian Dable can get out of Cam Ward and what they can work on. And of course, Cam Ward is storyline number one heading into this season for the Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's going to be storyline number one for the next.
Well, right. Seasons, the quarterback is almost every year.
But here's the thing, and I'm not, trying to state the obvious, but it just, I like the fact that you have a defensive-minded head coach who understands the key to everything is that quarterback going right. And this goes back to what I said when Saleh was first named the coach. Some people were a little upset. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I understand he failed with the Jets, but if you do things right, you learn from failure.
Yeah.
Right. And what is he coming out saying? Hey, man, the number one thing, we got to make sure that we build around Cam.
Right.
Because he understands that their success is going to, he's already lived having a top 3 defense and still losing. Right. So the bottom line, I know everybody says defense wins championships, but scoreboard.
Yeah. You can't win if you can't score.
Yeah. You got to run the scoreboard.
No, it's there. Yes. Defense does win championships, and we've seen teams with elite defenses and average offenses win Super Bowls. But you got to at least have an average offense. And the Titans were not an average offense last year. Let's go to the phone lines quickly before we let TD go. Trey has called in. Trey, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing? Good morning, TD.
Good morning, Jay. Trey. What's up with you?
No, chilling. Jake the Snake Roberts.
Roberts?
Yeah, so Jake the Snake Roberts is an old wrestler, man.
Okay,
I know one of my favorite wrestlers.
Trey, I used to get in trouble for DDTing people the way he did. Remember, he put that he'll go like this. He'll roll the finger around in the air and then bang and DDT him. Boy, I used to get in trouble for that.
I gotta say, I got Jake the Snake a lot. I've never seen Jake the Snake Roberts before.
He used to put him to sleep with a DDT and then pull a snake out his bag and let the snake crawl on him.
Hey, my uncle, who's like 2 years older than me, used to do it to me all the time, dude.
Yep, that was the move.
All
DDT.
the time. Hey, I want to ask y'all, realistically, what do you expect out of Cam Ward as far as improvement, and what do you expect out of the new guy, the new receiver we have, as far as like catches and yards? Like realistically, what do y'all think?
I like that. I think Cam Ward, I think he passes for.
Could he be the first 4,000-yard passer in Titans history?
I think he's going to come
close. He could be.
I'm going to say 3,700 to 4,000 passing yards.
Okay.
I think. And Cornell Tate. What you think about Cornell Tate? What you think he'll do?
Tate, I'm gonna go with. All right.
1,300.
No,
I don't know if he's getting to
that's lofty.
1,300.
I'm going to go with 900. I'm going to go somewhere in the range of like 60 to 70 catches for 900 yards. But
I'll go 8 to 9. I'll be realistic. 8 to
yeah,
9.
there you go.
You know.
And I think he's going to score some touchdowns though. They're going to take advantage of his short area quickness and his back shoulder ability. I think he's going to score a touchdown.
Is he a hands catcher or a
Absolute
body catcher?
fully hands catcher. That's what he does. He catches with his hands, and that's an improvement he made from sophomore from last year. He got that was really the big improvement for him.
Okay. Hey, if I get my press pass, I'm gonna come over there and see y'all.
Sounds good.
Come on down.
Thanks for the call,
Hey,
Trey.
I love y'all. Hey,
Much
have
love.
a great day, okay?
All right.
Have a good one,
All right.
Trey. Glad that Trey could sneak in before we
Yep.
have to let TD go.
Kawan Williams.
Yes, there you
That
go.
was the
Yep.
nickel.
Yep, for Robert Saleh with the 49ers. Well, TD, enjoy the first open media OTA today. Excited to see what comes out of it. I'll be following along again at @Davenport_NFL on X. And hopefully we get some good stuff out of that today as the Titans continue their offseason work.
Yes, sir. Let's go, man. Appreciate it. Shout out to everybody. Be safe out there. It's raining. But dang, drive the speed limit at least still.
Always great having TD in. We will have him back for a full show next week. We'll take a quick break. We'll react to what TD had to say. We'll continue talking Titans after this. 615-737-1025. Next man up here on 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Appreciate Turron Davenport making some time to come over here for a couple segments before he has to get over there to the Titans facility. First open OTA today, and TD will be out there. Robert Saleh going to speak, some select players. So we will see what comes out of that as the Titans hit the field coming up in just a couple of hours. All of our offseason coverage is brought to you by Tennessee Brewworks, finely tuned craft beer for finely tuned fans. Tennessee Brewworks, official craft beer of the offseason coverage here on 1025 The Game. We talked a little bit about the cornerback room with TD there. Marcus Harris has been somebody that this coaching staff has raved about and said that, hey, you may talk about the nickel spot and say that we didn't address it this offseason, but don't forget about Marcus Harris. He's a player that they really like. I'm less worried about the nickel spot than I am about the depth on the outside. When we were looking through the cornerback room with Corey yesterday, I realized how thin that group is. Of course, you brought in Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott. Those are going to be your starting outside cornerbacks, although TD did say he thinks Alontae Taylor fits better in the nickel. But behind that, it's Joshua Williams, Micah Robinson, and then Latrell McCutcheon, the undrafted free agent from Houston, who I think he might fit more in a nickel spot as well. So I am a little worried about the depth at cornerback. That's a position where usually you aren't going to see your starters make it through the entire season without having some sort of injury. So I don't know. I'm looking at this right now a little bit worried that by week 12 or week 13, you could see Joshua Williams and Micah Robinson starting at your outside cornerback spots, which is not ideal.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say the way that they assembled this roster, they raised the floor of the team, but the ceiling is still to be determined, because my main concern has been the depth at edge rusher. That's been my concern, but you look at the depth of the corner too, and yeah, it doesn't look too good. Latrell McCutcheon's a smaller guy. I think he's like 6'1",
right.
185.
I think he's going to play in the nickel probably if he does.
I mean, you look at your starters, you feel pretty good about your starters, but yeah, you look behind them, and just given the injury history that the Titans have had in the past, God forbid something happened to the starters, the depth's not looking too good.
Right. And it shows you that rebuilding a roster, it takes some time. You're not going to be able to, quote unquote, check every box in one offseason. Like, they have to go out and stack good off seasons on top of each other. You still need depth on the offensive line specifically. I mean, you don't have a swing tackle that I feel good about. You also need starting level talent on the offensive line. Defensively, I think the defensive starters, as you look at the depth chart, it's like, all right, that looks pretty good. You go through 1 through 11 and you say, all right, there's some talent there. And if everybody stays healthy, this could be a solid to above average defense this season. But it does take time to build up the depth behind it. You've got to hit on these 4th and 5th and 6th round picks. You've got to sign like Joshua Williams, the cornerback coming over from Kansas City, I think is a perfect example. You have to hit on some of those signings that may not look flashy, may not look sexy at the moment, but when they're asked to step in, they're able to make plays for you and they're able to, keep the sky from falling. I just don't know if they have enough depth specifically at cornerback this year. But I'm also looking around at the free agent options, and there's nobody that really stands out to me as, all right, that's a significant upgrade. Yeah, like it'd probably be better if you brought in like Marshawn Lattimore. He had a bad year in Washington this past year. He's 30, and he's still out there for a reason, right? I'm sure he's asking for a decent amount of money. He was making $19 million a year previously. He's not going to get anywhere close to that this year. But maybe a Marshawn Lattimore as a 4th cornerback might make sense. I've never liked Trayvon Diggs. I think he's more of just a guy who's out of position most of the time, but will randomly walk into an interception here and there. I will not trade giving up X plays for a couple of picks here and there. But again, a veteran guy who could add some depth for you. The one guy I do like, and he'd be more in the nickel, and maybe you could just build up the depth in general and have Marcus Harris play inside, outside. Kenny Moore was just cut by the Colts. Like, I think that's a guy who could make an impact this year. Jeff Okudah's still out there. there's just not a whole lot of names when I look through this free agent cornerback group and say, yeah, that guy is going to add to this room right now. But when you have a bunch of undrafted free agents as your backup options right now, maybe some of these names could actually help your team.
Yeah, I don't think there are many options, if any at all, that could immediately help this football team. But again, you do feel good about those starters. But I think of a guy like, going back to the defensive line, I think of a guy like Jackie Marshall, who, to be honest, I don't know a lot about him. I'm excited to watch him practice in the limited windows that the media is allowed to see. But that's a guy, a 6th-round pick, that you don't really have a choice. Like, he's going to have to play some football for you. I think he's listed as the backup to Jordan Elliott right now. So he's going to have to be able to come in and to be able to get that pressure up the middle to open up those lanes for the edge rushers to go and get the quarterback.
See, the defensive line, that's the one spot on this team I'm not worried about the depth. And honestly, I think wide receiver falls into that as well. Maybe running back too. Are those positions? I don't worry about the depth.
I'm
now,
with you on that one.
You can question some of the top line starting talent there, and like, do you have key pieces? You hope Carnell Tate's that guy, of course. At running back, I think eventually you're going to need to invest a little bit more in that position. But right now, you've got a trio that you feel good about. And then on the defensive line, they've got 10 guys that I think you can pretty much chalk it up. 10 guys who are going to make the team. John Franklin Myers, Jeffrey Simmons, Jermaine Johnson, Keldrick Falk, Solomon Thomas, Femi Oladejo, Jordan Elliott, Jacob Martin, Jackie Marshall, and Jalen Harrell. Like, I think those are your 10 guys on the defensive line. I'm like, man, if those are your 10, I feel pretty good about that. But everywhere else, there is a significant lack of depth. And we can talk about that more coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Coming up in the 10 a.m. hour, there was a podcast, and I want to shout out Trevor on the text line for bringing this to my attention yesterday. Derek and David Carr on their podcast did a 30-minute film breakdown of Cam Ward, and we're going to dive into some of the things they said coming up in hour number 2. But we'll continue this conversation just about the Titans roster as OTAs continue today. Open practice, so we'll get some videos, we'll get some notes about how the team is looking. Again, very early on, still in May. 615-737-1025. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls, and first pitch is scheduled for 5:45. You can catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, and Social Cantina. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on your Thursday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, finishing up the first hour. Little Tennessee pimping for TD, who is with us for the first 30 minutes of the show. If you missed it, you can go back on the YouTube stream or wait, the podcast will be out shortly here. We were going through the depth on this Titans roster, and the cornerback room specifically is concerning to me. I like Alontae Taylor. I like Cordell Flott. I don't really know what's behind them. And if there's an injury, you might be left with some replacement level players on the outside. Now, Coach B on the YouTube chat asks, I don't know where the confidence in Flott comes from. Well, you're paying him $15 million a year. So there's that. And as Corey said yesterday, just because he's being paid $15 million a year doesn't make him a $15 million player. But you're paying him to be a starting cornerback. He's coming off the best season of his career coverage-wise with the Giants. And New York seemed to desperately want him back before he ended up coming over to the Titans. So I'm going to give Cordell Flott the benefit of the doubt here based on what the Titans have said, how much the Titans are paying him, and the trajectory that we saw, again, coming off his best season as a coverage player in New York last year. So going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he's going to be an all-pro, but I think he is going to be better than what they had last year, which again is a low bar, but I think you can look and say Cordell Flott is a starting level cornerback. But depth is an issue around the entire roster. The other two spots that concern me seriously are the offensive line and linebacker. I'm a little worried about those two spots where, yeah, the top line guys, Dan Moore is not great, but he's a starting level player. And that's fine for right now. You've got to replace him eventually, but you have a starting left tackle. J.C. Latham, you're hoping takes a step. But beyond that, what is there? I'm going to keep banging the drum that they need to go sign a swing tackle. I don't know if maybe it's a post-June 1st thing where some of these guys might be more willing to take a smaller deal just so they can get on a team, or maybe you get a cut post-June 1st that can end up being a swing tackle for you. But the Titans do not have enough depth on the offensive line in general, but specifically at tackle. And they need to fix that fast. Linebacker's not quite as concerning, but I do look and see, Cedric Gray, Anthony Hill, Cody Barton. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot there. So I do think that the Titans have done a nice job. As you said, Parker, they've raised the floor of this team. They've added some starting veteran players in free agency and tried to build through the draft. But you can still see that this is not a finished product, obviously, because there is a lack of depth at some serious spots. Tackle and cornerback specifically are the ones I'm concerned about.
Yeah. So the like you said, the linebacker thing, I'm not as worried about that. I know. See, I have a feeling, and I'm sure everybody else does too, that Anthony Hill is going to start. He's going to be your green dot guy. He's going to replace Cody Barton because that's a typical Saleh style player, but there will be a learning curve, right? Because he is a rookie after all. You have Cedric Gray, who finished top 5 in the league in tackles last year, kind of unexpectedly. James Williams making the transition from safety to linebacker his first year in the league. The athleticism for an average NFL linebacker is there, so you feel pretty good about that. But it's like, what TD said, things that he'll be looking for in camp, right, is who's going to start for your interior, the center right guard for the Titans. But you also need that swing tackle because the NFL is a very violent sport, as we all know. And at some point, someone's going to get hurt. You're not ever going to be 100% as you continue to progress through the season. So having that depth is extremely important. And they don't have that. So that is going to be one of my biggest concerns and something that I will be keeping a close eye on as we continue throughout OTAs and minicamp.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Dan Moore and J.C. Latham. Last year, Dan Moore played 16 games, so he only missed 1 game. J.C. Latham, I want to say, missed 5 or 6 last year with that hip injury at the beginning of the season. He played 13 games, so he missed 4 games. So, yeah, they played a decent amount of the season. Out of the possible 34 games you could have had starters at tackle, they played 29 of them. But would you feel okay having 5 games here or there with Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon starting at tackle for you? My answer to that would be no. And maybe there is a disconnect right now with some of these free agent tackles. We've mentioned a few of the names, like Jack Conklin's still out there. And I'm sure Jack Conklin is holding out for an opportunity to go start somewhere. But maybe that doesn't come to fruition. Maybe him or a player like him, it doesn't have to be Conklin. I don't know if he would come back here, that would say, you know what, I'll take the opportunity to be the swing tackle, and, maybe I'll get my opportunity to prove myself. Post June 1st could end up being huge for the Titans if there's a cut that comes through that allows them to go pick somebody up. But
Taylor Decker is still out there.
Taylor Decker's still out there. That's another guy who I think is holding out for a starting spot. Maybe it doesn't come to fruition. No matter what, the Titans need to add a veteran in that room. You cannot go into the season with Austin Deculus and Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon as your third and fourth tackles. You have to go add somebody who you feel better about, because you're just setting Cam Ward up for failure if J.C. Latham goes down in week 1 or Dan Moore goes down in week 2. You can't have it. Remember 2021. Or not 2022. Taylor Lewan blows out his knee again against the Bills in week 2. You had traded for Dennis Daly, but Dennis Daly wasn't good, and you ended up having to start him the rest of the year.
That was a train
and
wreck.
things fell apart completely for you. You have to upgrade at that spot. And I would say cornerback is the same way. I do not trust the depth there. The injury rate in the NFL is 100%, and if you go into the season with only 2 quality tackles and 2 quality cornerbacks, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of success at those positions, because somebody's going to get hurt. There's going to be an injury, and you're going to be left scraping the bottom of the barrel for some of the guys that you have on this roster.
And that's why I'm so surprised that the Titans didn't address this earlier. Like, I know you're bringing over Brian Daboll. I know you're bringing why am I blanking on the offensive line coach?
Carmen Brasilla.
Yes. I know you're bringing over those guys, and they're bringing over, their guys that they coached in New York, but those guys weren't starting level in New York.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Sloatman.
And I know Mike Borgonzi's a smart person. I'm just kind of dumbfounded that they didn't feel the need to address this earlier. And there are still guys out there, but why are you waiting?
Yeah. And again, I know you can't check every box. But you have so much money left, $65 million in cap space. And Dave Ziegler alluded to it when he did the press conference post-draft of free agency's tough because these guys have other offers on the table, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But you left a lot of spots where I think just getting an average replacement level veteran would have been better. Like, maybe replacement level is not the right word, but just an average player who you feel confident.
Some guy that, like, if you need to step in, you can do it. And
Right.
you can do so and play at – we're not even asking you to play at all-pro level,
Well, and it's what confused me more is, all right, you didn't go get a depth corner or a depth nickel in free agency. You didn't go sign a swing tackle in free agency, but you didn't draft one either. Like, I understand you pick the best player on the board, but I would have rather had a project tackle or a depth cornerback than Jackie Marshall in the 6th round. And maybe Jackie Marshall ends up being a dude, and Saleh and Borgonzi saw it and they were waiting to get him. But at that point, you have depth issues at specific spots. And for me, interior defensive line is the one spot I did not worry about the depth. You had Simmons and Franklin Myers, and Falk can play inside. You signed Solomon Thomas and Jordan Elliott, who have played in this system before. I would have rather spent that pick on somebody who can be a depth option for you now rather than just another rotational defensive tackle.
Yeah, and there were project guys out there, right? I mean, I know that Pat Coogan was there in the 6th round, a guy that I feel like can be a starting caliber center at some point for this football team. There were guys out there that the Titans could have. Now, hindsight's 2020, obviously. I'm fine with the Jackie Marshall pick, but I would prefer that this team go out and get a swing tackle that's still left out there in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, like, just looking at the draft, and who knows what these guys are going to end up being. But there are some names of tackles that I had seen going earlier than they did. J.C. Davis went 8 picks later after Jackie Marshall out of Illinois. Demetrius Crownover went 12 picks later, the tackle out of Texas A&M. Damani Jackson, cornerback out of Alabama. And again, this is just me reading through and looking at positions of guys who were taken later, but I do think that that would have been more valuable to your team than another rotational defensive tackle. We'll see. I could be wrong, but I am seriously concerned about the lack of a swing tackle and the lack of depth in the secondary heading into this season.
And we know that there are so many holes on this Titans team. There's no way that they could fill all of them in one offseason. But they didn't even address the need for the starters in the interior offensive line, you know? So I will always continue to be confused by that.
Yep, there are big question marks on the offensive line for the Titans specifically, and I am very intrigued to see who's lining up first at OTAs today at center and right guard. My guess would be Sloatman and Volson, but maybe Jackson Slater. I wouldn't be shocked if that was in the cards as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to join the conversation, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at 1025 The Game for live shows and exclusive content and chat with us there. Coming up in hour number 2, David and Derek Carr on their Homegrown podcast did a 30-minute deep dive on Cam Ward. I watched it all yesterday. I thought it was great stuff. Went into a lot of the arm talent of Cam Ward and what makes him special, but also talked about the things that he needs to clean up if he is going to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. We'll talk about all of it. We'll listen to some clips coming up in the second hour of the show. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Second hour here on this Thursday. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We are going to dive in on Cam Ward. It seems like the hype around him heading into year two is heating up nationally, and part of that is he's on quarterback coming up in July, and you're going to see a behind-the-scenes look at his rookie season. But there was also a podcast that came out with the Carr brothers, Derek and David, talking about Cam Ward's ability and what he needs to improve upon heading into year two. But before we get into that, let's go to our phone lines. Tony has called in. Tony, what you got for us? Good morning.
I heard you talking about the offensive line concerns and needing to sign a veteran. I've got a name for you. And I know he just built a house in Brentwood about a year ago. Longtime veteran, George Fant from Western Kentucky, played offensive guard, offensive tackle for like 10 years now. But I don't know if you know George's background. It's amazing. I actually was an assistant coach at his high school in basketball up in Bowling Green, and he went to Western Kentucky and played 4 years of basketball, started all 4 years. It was like all-state a couple of years in high school. He had never played high school football and only played backup tight end to Tyler Higbee, who's in the NFL, barely got on the field. And he's been in the league now 10 years. And, being that he just built that house in Brentwood, I think he would be a no-brainer signing, unless he's retired, but I don't think he is.
Yeah, let me see. It does not look like he's officially retired. He spent last year with the Commanders.
Washington.
So
yeah, that's my team.
Gotcha. He will be 34 in July, so he is getting up there. But I think that is a name that would make sense as just a safety net for Dan Moore and J.C. Latham, which I think is great.
But he doesn't have nearly as much wear and tear on his body because he never played high school or basically college football.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Maybe it extends his career a little bit. That's a good name. Thanks for the call, Tony.
Estimated market value would be around 1.3.
Yeah, and maybe, at 34 years old, there's a decent chance that that's a guy who just doesn't want to participate in the offseason activities, and you sign heading into training camp. So I think that is a good name along with some of the other options out there at tackle. Appreciate Tony calling in. Talking about Cam Ward here, and I want to hit on this quickly before we get into the Carr Brothers podcast. Coach B again on the YouTube chat says, it kills me to hear the same people that criticize Will Levis rave about Cam's arm talent. Will Levis's problem has never been his arm talent. Like, Will Levis can make throws that most people cannot make, but playing quarterback is much more than that. And
everything from the neck up is what's wrong with Will Levis.
Right. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into this hour is Cam Ward clearly has the arm talent, just like Will Levis. Can he develop that, work on the other aspects of playing the game of quarterback to develop into a franchise quarterback? Will Levis was given the opportunity in the 2024 season to prove that he could do that, and he didn't. He turned the football over way too much. He was not able to take that arm talent and turn it into being a complete player. Cam Ward has to do that as well. We saw flashes, just like we saw flashes with Will Levis in 2023. Cam Ward has to prove that he's more than just the arm talent. And I thought this was a great podcast. If you haven't checked it out, it is the Homegrown podcast with Derek and David Carr. And they go in depth on about 8 to 10 plays that Cam Ward made in his rookie season. They start with some of the good ones and talk about some of the big throws that he made, the stuff that he does that a lot of other quarterbacks can't do. But I think they also did a nice job of saying, hey, this is still a young quarterback with a lot of development to do, and he can get better under Brian Daboll. And I'll start there with they lead the podcast off saying, he's got Brian Daboll there. That is going to be huge for him. And I think we've talked about it a decent amount, but Brian Daboll is one of the most important people on this Titans team, coaching staff heading into 2026. We had the discussion a few days ago about Caleb Williams and his development from year 1 to year 2 under Ben Johnson. You need to see Cam Ward make a similar leap, and Brian Daboll coming in is going to be one of the most important pieces to that puzzle for Cam Ward as he tries to make that jump from a flashy but inconsistent rookie to hopefully a more consistent second-year quarterback for the Titans.
And the difference between Caleb Williams and Cam Ward is Caleb Williams made a lot of out of structure plays at USC and even, during his season at Oklahoma as well. So that's something that he had to learn under Ben Johnson. Like, hey, we're going to run more play action. Hey, we're going to do more under center stuff. You have to play within the structure of the offense. You can still do the out of structure stuff. And when he does, it's amazing, but you can't just thrive off of making those out of structure plays in the NFL. Cam Ward, he has a good mix of both. He can play in structure. He can make the out of structure plays. But for him, something that I want to see more is you said this yesterday, right? Take the layups when they're there. I've had coaches tell me that you never go broke taking a profit. If Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears is your check down, you don't have anything downfield, take the check down, right? And also, too, be able to utilize your legs. I know that when he took off against Jacksonville and hurt his shoulder, there was a lot of criticism because, why did Cam Ward run? That's just a tool in his tool belt. You play in the NFL, you're going to get injured at some point. It sucks. But when there's an opportunity to take off for 5 yards and get a first down, do it.
I think that was part of Cam Ward's growth down the stretch last year. He was a little bit more willing to run instead of he was getting outside the pocket and the defense could just kind of sit back in coverage because they were like, all right, he's running to throw. He's not running to run. Just by putting that additional layer of pressure on the defense, it opens up more things for a young quarterback. And I think that was Mike McCoy, I want to say, said it in one of his press conferences, like, hey, we're telling him you can run the football, right? Like you get outside the pocket and you can get 5 yards and get out of bounds, get 5 yards and get out of bounds. And that is something that we saw start to develop down the stretch for Cam Ward. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Coach B, there are a lot of Will Levis apologists that we've found. And I think Will Levis has the opportunity to go develop somewhere else. But Coach B says, Will has the arm, it's just in his head. Y'all are still repeating Callahan propaganda. I don't understand. Did people not watch the 2024 season? Like all the people saying Will Levis didn't get a fair shake. And yes, Brian Callahan proved to not be a quarterback guru developing these young players. But are we really going to just ignore some of the horrible plays that Will Levis made in 2024? And the Bengals game when he got benched was awful. It was atrocious quarterback play. And yes, Cam Ward had bad moments in his rookie season, but he was a rookie. Now, if he comes out and has a similar season to Will Levis in 2024, no one's going to feel good about Cam Ward heading into next season. So I don't understand why people are so gung-ho on Will Levis didn't get a fair shake. Go rewatch the 2024 season and tell me that Will Levis deserved another season.
Would you sit through a season as a Titans fan if Will Levis was your starting quarterback for the whole season?
It was Will Levis's job to convince the Titans that he was going to be a franchise quarterback.
That's the thing about the NFL. It moves quicker. And I've had complaints of QBs not getting developed properly, and part of that is true. I'd like to see Levis get another opportunity somewhere else, but he was given a chance here and he didn't capitalize on it.
Right. He had to prove that he was going to be the guy. And with Cam Ward available at number 1 overall, he did not do enough to make the Titans think it was more worth it to trade the pick than to take the quarterback. And so it just frustrates me. Like, move on. Will Levis is not going to be the quarterback here. He had his opportunity to prove himself in 2024, and he didn't do it. We're not going to spend the rest of the hour on Will Levis. We're going to spend it on Cam Ward because he is the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. And Derek and David Carr did a great job diving in. We're going to hear some clips from what they said on the podcast about Cam Ward's skills, what he's able to do, and also the potential of what he could grow into. But first, let's go to our phone lines once again, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Gil from California is called in. Gil, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hey, how's it going, fellas?
Doing great. How about you, Gil?
Doing good, too. I wanted to give a little Cam Ward. I think he's going to be a good quarterback for the Titans. We just got to get this offensive line fixed. But my biggest concern is if Dable is successful, I mean, who's the next guy with Cam Ward? Because all the old good quarterbacks from back in the days, like the Mannings and John Elway, they had a offensive coordinator kind of guy that stuck with them the whole time, to where they learned the offense, to where they could know where the players were, where their eyes were closed. So hopefully we can get like Stocker or somebody to grow with Cam, so he can keep the same playbook and then kind of take over the offense, to where he can kind of get up to the line and call all the plays from there. But we're going to have somebody who he can grow with as offensive coordinator if Dable moves on and be successful.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about, Gil, that they need to have a succession plan. And I want to say Robert Saleh mentioned that when he was hired. We never really got a specific answer on who that succession plan is. He had said that they have coaches that they want to coach their coaches to become better and hopefully develop somebody into that offensive coordinator. Maybe it's Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach. I think there are plenty of options, but I agree with you, Gil, that the best thing for the Titans this year would be Brian Dable being so good that somebody has to hire him away. And at that point, I think you do have to find somebody who can be a longer-term solution with Cam Ward.
Yeah, keep the same playbook. I want to keep the same playbook, man. We can't keep switching the playbooks on them.
I agree. You want continuity with Cam Ward, and that has to start with Brian Dable getting him into this system. And then, we saw it with Matt LaFleur when he was here back in 2018, that yes, Matt LaFleur left and was hired away after that one season, but Arthur Smith, who is on the staff currently, kept a lot of the same concepts and the terminology and was able to make it easier for Marcus Mariota, even though he had a different voice in his ear as he was getting the plays. I think that's important too, is that yes, Brian Dable may not be here next year if the Titans have success, but hopefully whoever takes over can have some level of continuity for Cam Ward.
Yeah, and gut feel is that he probably won't, but we're still a year away from that. So what we do know is Saleh had to have a good contingency plan, or else he probably wouldn't have gotten the job.
Yep. I would agree with that. And Saleh has talked about some sort of succession at offensive coordinator, but they're obviously keeping that under wraps. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we will hear a clip from the Homegrown podcast, Derek Carr and David Carr. They talked about Cam Ward's arm talent, the mental ability that he has, but we'll also get into some of the things that he needs to improve upon heading into year number 2. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on your Thursday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game.
knowing where your check down is. It shows you the brain. So we obviously see the freakish talent.
And you don't want to like dig in too much like one play,
Yes.
but like you can look at that first play and you can learn a lot about this kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So already I can see his mind. Oh, wow. He knew where his check down was.
Yeah.
Like
in the midst of chaos.
as the guy was leaving him, like the fact that he's seeing the field.
Loved it.
Sometimes you get college quarterbacks get into the NFL
Buddy.
and the game becomes so fast, it's a blur.
And they're content with, okay, I don't know what's happening. I'm going to protect the football. I'm going to go down. And that was not what Cam did in that situation.
That was not that situation.
No, love that.
Look, I don't know the read if it was top. I see his eyes starting up. I think it's left to right, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Read, whatever.
Sure.
We're not coaching that. What I'm doing is I'm watching this quarterback here, Dave. And I'm watching him. One of the abilities that he has is to extend plays.
He definitely does
We
that.
saw it on his first completion ever.
Yeah.
We're going to see it again here. We're going to see him in the pocket later too, which I think he's the best at, for himself. I think that's where he's the best.
I agree.
But this is one of those moments where you're like, am I watching Josh Allen? Am I watching Patrick Mahomes? Who am I watching? The fact that he gets all the way to the sideline, he gets ejected,
Been there.
toes up.
Launch, toes up.
Okay. And finds a completion across the middle of the field. You're seeing some of these throws from these guys that people wouldn't even dare to make.
Wouldn't even think about making this.
But he finds him.
That was Derek and David Carr on their homegrown podcast. Again, did a 30-minute film deep dive on Cam Ward and his rookie season. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. The two plays that they were talking about there, if they didn't paint the picture well enough for you, the first one was Cam Ward in the first game against Denver. 3rd and long, he steps up in the pocket, found Tony Pollard for about a 15-yard gain at the very end there. And then the second one was the Seahawks play where he found Xavier Restrepo in the middle of the field. I think everybody remembers that.
Yes. Yeah, I do.
And so they're going through the things that make Cam Ward special. And we'll talk about that here. Then we'll get into some of the things that they said he needs to be better at. I like the way they talk about his mental makeup, because I think that's something that we don't talk about enough with Cam Ward. When we talk about Cam Ward's ability, it's a lot of the second play that they went through of the off-platform, backyard football type of plays. And he made a lot of those this past. But I do think the first play they looked at, the Denver game, first game of his NFL career on the road in one of the toughest environments in the NFL, he was able to step up in the pocket on 3rd down and with bodies all around him, knew where his check down was and was able to make the play. Now, he has to be more consistent at being able to find his check down. And like we said, not hunting the big play so consistently that you're missing out on free yards that the defense is giving you. But I do think that is what gives me more confidence in Cam Ward. It's not just the arm talent. It's also the processing that we've seen. Now, it hasn't always been perfect, but I do think you can see the ability to process, go through his reads, and know where guys are supposed to be. The spatial awareness, I think, is really special from Cam Ward.
Yeah, and I see a lot of the things that Derek and David were just talking about, because at practice, I'd watch him, and I just think to myself, like, there are just so many quarterbacks that cannot make those throws, and that's really special. I mean, the snappiness of his arm, that whip effect, not everybody can do that. And he has that. That's why when we get into this whole, well, Will Levis had all the potential of the world. He could make throws that not everybody can make. Yeah. But what the problem with Will Levis was everything from the neck up. Cam Ward's mental makeup is night and day different compared to Will Levis's. So you watch Cam Ward and you see some of the plays that he can make, and then you see some of the plays that he made last year, and you're like, that doesn't add up. So there's a lot riding on Brian Daboll this year. I think he will be able to, because Josh Allen had a lot of these same problems coming out of college, right? He could throw the ball 80 yards, but there was a lot of inaccuracy issues, which Cam Ward will have to improve on this year. And there was a lot of, dude, you don't have to be Superman. You can be, but you don't have to be right now. So if he can get that out of Cam Ward this year, we are going to see a big jump from him in year 2.
And I think that is what gives you confidence, is that Josh Allen did have similar issues to Cam Ward, and Brian Daboll was able to work those out without taking away what made him special. And that's the big thing, is you don't want to overcoach a quarterback like that. who has those special abilities. You don't want to coach him out of what makes him great, but you also have to realize that he needs to pick and choose when to use that ability. And I know a lot of people who are defending Will Levis, whether it's on the text line or the YouTube chat, are blaming Brian Callahan. And 100%, looking back now, Brian Callahan deserves a lot of blame for the failures of the offense, both with Will Levis and Cam Ward. But you look at what Brian Dable has said about Cam Ward. And I know he said good things about Will Levis too. Brian Dable wanted to trade up badly for Cam Ward, to come here to work with Cam Ward. I think, we talk about the Josh Allen comparison. I think Brian Dable sees a lot of that too, of this is a guy who, if I can get my hands on him and mold him, he can be a special quarterback. And you saw those abilities, and the Carr brothers, I think they were really impressed with what he did early on in the clip. Actually, I believe like the first sentence of the clip is Derek Carr says he may have the best arm in the league. And he even says, he's like, that may be shocking to some people, and you may say that's crazy, but if it's not best, it's probably top 3. And he said, just because the Madden ratings don't say that doesn't mean it's not true. That's really high praise. From Derek Carr, Derek Carr's not Peyton Manning. Derek Carr's not Tom Brady. But that's a guy who played over a decade in the NFL and had a lot of success. I think that's really high praise for the young quarterback from Carr and, of course, David Carr, the former first overall pick. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's go to the phone lines. Adam in Portland is called in. Adam, thanks for calling. Good morning.
I can't take advice from David Carr, man. Like, Derek Carr, okay, Derek maybe, but David, man, I don't know. I just watched it from start to finish with him, and see, that's what I'm afraid Cam's going to turn into David Carr. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah,
is that he never gets to show his potential. Because I still think David was an awesome quarterback coming out. Was it Fresno?
Fresno State. Yeah, they both played there.
Yeah, so he was a great quarterback, and he was the right pick. But they had no line, and guess what? We still don't have a line. Now, the better thing for us to start the season is that you're right. You just said it. You're not opening against the Broncos. You're opening against the Jets. And that's completely different.
Yeah.
I think we should crush the Jets, which means it'll probably be a 1-point game. But you should win that game. Like, there's no reason at home. We never get to start at home. There's no reason you shouldn't win that game. So, yeah, man, I hope my quarterback doesn't turn into David Carr. But he absolutely could, because I think our line's gotten worse. And if you can look across the board and tell me it's gotten better, I just don't see it, dude.
No,
so I still am worried about that.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think on paper, the offensive line has gotten worse this past season. And, there's potential. Some of the young guys, if they're better than we are expecting, maybe it's going to be fine. But that's a big if. And what Adam said, it is funny. Parker, did you watch the whole podcast?
I'm actually going to listen to it when I get in the car after the show. I didn't check it out yet.
It's so funny. Like, Derek Carr is leading the conversation. Most of the analysis is coming from Derek Carr, and you can kind of hear it in the clips. It's just David adding little like, oh, 100% agree with that. Oh, yeah. And Derek Carr is doing most of the analysis during this podcast.
Derek Carr's a smart guy, too, so I trust what he says.
He is. I actually really was. I enjoyed listening to him. I thought he did a good job of taking some somewhat complex ideas of football and making them, I don't even know the word, just like you could understand it. And for me, I wasn't a quarterback. I know you were, Parker, and I understand the terminology of football. And, they talk about like a double mug front and all this kind of, like, I understand what all that means, but I thought they did a good job of making it easier for the average fan to comprehend the things that they were talking about. So I really like what Derek Carr was able to say.
Yeah, and that's honestly can be a challenge, because you don't want to talk and where your audience doesn't understand what you're saying.
Right.
So that is a very unique skill. So I am excited to listen to this, though.
Well, we got one more clip that we'll get to coming up next. The Carr brothers talk about specifically Cam Ward's potential, what he can become, but they point out 2 specific issues that they saw in Cam Ward's game as a rookie that he needs to work on and get fixed. We will also get to all of your phones. We see you waiting. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game.
all those things.
The communication with your O-line, all those little things that go into
Yes.
doing things right.
I believe that he easily, talent-wise, could be a top 5 quarterback.
I agree with that.
And no one would be shocked by it.
No, they wouldn't.
And
Because
so
then they'd say, wait, what? And they'd pop on the film and you'd see that stuff pop off the film.
100%.
Pop off.
And so there's just a few things that we saw just in 8 clips to help Cam Ward.
I'm watching Titan football this year.
I'm watching
gonna
Titan
tell you
football too.
I'm going to tell you
But those are just a few things that I think Dable's seeing that hopefully he's, they're coaching, they're drilling, that you have a season worth of film on the guy. You don't need to just go throw your drills out there that you think are good. Watch his film, put some drills together that you see, hey, man, if he does this right, man, he's going to be special.
And he loves to work.
Loves to work.
You could tell.
He loves
in
to
the
work.
off-season stuff. Even when he was coming out of the Shador, you could see them bantering back and forth. Like he likes the competition.
Yes.
He likes to work. So
Absolutely.
that's fun.
Big Cam Ward fan.
He's in there super early too. I know some guys over there. He's
Yes.
in there like 5 o'clock in the morning, like in the off-season.
Oh,
just like you guys were.
One of his coaches texted me. He's like, hey, will you just send me like your weekly routine?
Yeah.
I just want to show it to him.
Oh, perfect. That's what he wants. He wants someone to show him.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. So I'm sure he got some
Love it.
from all different
Love
quarterbacks
it.
and just said, look, man, here's some routines that these guys did and had over decades careers.
It's paid off because he's in there. So he's taking some advice from people.
But that's the point. Like the fact that a coach would ask, he's asking other people.
Yeah.
He's probably like, man, show me everybody.
Show me, please.
And let me perfect mine.
Yep. I love that.
And so I just think it's awesome that he wants to work like that. So those are just some of our coaching
Big Cam
points
Ward
that
fan.
I think that, man, if you just fix those two
I'd love
things,
to coach him.
I think that
Fantastic.
he goes even higher.
Yeah, I agree.
Just from those two things. And I think it's proven on the film that he can do it. And that if he does it, he can be really great. So
that was again Derek and David Carr breaking down Cam Ward on their homegrown podcast. I thought it was a great episode. Again, they went into about 8 plays from Cam Ward's rookie season and highlighted some of the things that make him special, the potential that he has, but also some of the red flags that we saw. And obviously we noticed that it was far from perfect as a rookie from Cam Ward, and he has a lot to work on heading into year 2. Now, potential's not everything, right? Like the TD always says it, the coach, your potential is going to get me fired. Cam Ward has tons of potential, but plenty of talented players have failed. But I do think, as Robert Saleh said, and as we heard from the Carr brothers there, that he's got that want to work, that drive to be in the building early, to watch film, and to be great at his craft. Robert Saleh said you rarely see guys who have that kind of mindset and mentality fail. And I think that is great to see Cam Ward not only having the arm talent, like, Vince Young is a perfect example too. We talked about him a little earlier this week. Vince Young had all the talent in the world, but I don't know if he had that drive to be great. So Cam Ward having that's a big first step. But they also highlighted a couple of things that he needs to work on. First, they said protections. The play that they showed to highlight this was the Raiders game where Devin White came free off the side. It was a 6-man front. J.C. Latham went outside to block Max Crosby and left a free runner right to Cam Ward. He fumbled. It ended up leading to a Raiders touchdown. Now, obviously, we don't know what was said. We do not know if Cam Ward called for the wrong protection. We don't know if J.C. Latham just did not execute his assignment. But I thought the Carr brothers made a very good point of saying, no matter what it was, it's going to fall on the quarterback, right? Like the quarterback's going to have to stand up there at the podium and answer for that play. You're not going to send Kevin Zeitler or J.C. Latham up to the podium to answer for that. And also, Cam Ward has to know where he's hot from. Like, you have to know, all right, is White coming free or is Crosby coming free? And if they do come, like if Devin White drops back into coverage, great, you can go through your protection, you got it blocked up. But if he comes, you've got to know where to go with the football. And you could see Cam Ward was trying to go through his progressions on that play, ended up getting crushed and losing the football. So I think that is that is definitely something he needs to work on. And it does concern me that they got rid of a veteran center and did not bring in anybody to replace him, because a lot of that protection stuff is probably going to fall on Cam Ward again, instead of having that veteran been around the block center who can take some of that off his plate.
Yeah, the quarterback's always going to get too much blame when things go wrong and too much praise when things go, right. So you lose Lloyd Cushenberry. You don't have a veteran center. And that's something that I would have several conversations with TD about, because if Pat Coogan ends up being your center, well, he was a rookie. He's going to be a rookie. You don't want a rookie calling out protections,
Right,
making changes on the offensive line because they're trying to get acclimated to the speed of the NFL. Plus, you have a second-year quarterback who's trying to make a big jump this year, and having another rookie with no NFL experience prior beside him doesn't help him take that next step. So, again, I know Mike Morganti is a smart person, but I just don't understand why that was not addressed, because we know after Linderbaum got picked up by the Raiders, it was a very thin center free agency class or whatever you want to call it. But there were still options out there.
Yeah.
And we went through some of them.
And you're stuck with either Slopeman or Coogan as your starting center. So Cam Ward, a lot of that's going to fall on his plate again. We saw him, he had command, he had control at the line of scrimmage. We saw him making checks, moving players around. He showed that he can do that, but it's, you got to do it on a more consistent basis. And I think the one thing that the Carr brothers pointed out specifically is when you don't have it blocked up, know where you're hot to. Like you got to know ball has to come out quick and it's got to go to the right spot. And I don't know if we saw that quite enough from Cam Ward as a rookie. The second note that they made, I think, is going to be the key to Cam Ward's development. And we saw this a ton last year, even in the preseason, the Vikings game. I think it was game 2, where he was in the end zone, didn't set his feet, but threw an absolute dime to the sideline. I think it was to Van Jefferson, just dropped it in the bucket. And a lot of people would say, yeah, the footwork was bad, but he made the throw. He can make the throw. Derek Carr, I thought, put it in the perfect frame, saying Cam Ward has the arm talent that even with horrible footwork, he can complete some of those passes 7 out of 10 times, right? Some of those passes, even if he doesn't set his feet get wonky, gets a little, happy feet in the pocket, he can still make those throws because he does have the arm talent. But it's having the humility as a quarterback to say, even though I can make that throw 7 out of 10 times with bad footwork,
this time I'm not going to do it.
If I had good footwork, I could make it 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 times. And that's a huge difference in the NFL. Just those couple of extra.
And what you say, Cam Ward has that?
I would think so. And
it seems like he's really coachable and would be willing to listen to a coach if they critiqued him on that.
Right. And, heading into the offseason with the shoulder injury, all we heard was he's working on his base. He's working on his base. He's trying to get his feet under him and match the feet to the eyes. So I like what we've seen so far. He's got to go prove it in the games that he can match the footwork and go from a guy who is inconsistent with his accuracy because he doesn't have his feet set to somebody who can make that throw 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 times. The throw that they specifically used it as an example when they were talking about his footwork was in the Broncos game again. Alec Iamander got by Riley Moss down the sideline one-on-one. Could have been a touchdown, but Cam Ward threw it out of bounds because his feet weren't set. He opened up the shoulders and just airmailed it into the sideline. That's a throw that he can make with bad footwork, but he didn't there, and it cost the Titans 7 points.
I remember. I remember where I was when that play happened. So it's the delicate balance of coaching, right? Because he does have that special in him. You don't want to take that out because when he needs to make the play, he can.
Yep.
But at the same time, if it's there, don't try to get fancy.
Yep.
Like if you see Van Jefferson coming open across the middle, just drill it, get it to him.
Yep.
You don't have to do any sidearm stuff if you have a clean pocket. So you hit the nail on the head. If your footwork is set, you make that throw nine times out of 10.
I think that podcast was really well it encompassed a lot of what we saw with Cam Ward. Now, there are other things that he struggled with that they didn't mention. He had some ball security issues at times. The accuracy on the deep ball, I don't know if it was all footwork, but that was a lot of it. There were other things Cam Ward did that he needs to work on. But I think those two aspects that Derek Carr specifically pointed out, being able to identify the blitz, set up protections, and get the ball out quickly when pressure is coming. And then also matching your feet and making sure that you're clean with your footwork because it can take you from good to great. Let's go back to the phone lines. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Connor is called in. Connor, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hey, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that dismissing Derek Carr
as like essentially an analyst just because he's playing. It's like, okay, how does Case Keenum have a head coaching job? Like, why did I forget what his name, Boyle ends up on rosters every year because he's a great coach. So like taking it on the field is one thing, but I'm pretty sure all these guys have some pretty good knowledge.
I don't think
about
we
what
dismissed either of them. We've been diving into their
No,
analysis.
not you, because I'm talking about the guy that called in before.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I have all the belief in the world in Cam because he has the work ethic. And I think about Derek Carr. I don't know how many years ago it was, but they were playing Kansas City on like a primetime game. And they went to overtime. And Derek, for the Raiders, they ended up losing that game. And I think that was kind of like one of those moments where if Derek gets over that hump, he becomes a different quarterback as far as belief in himself. And I just think that so much of it's just the psychology of it. And Cam has the psychology. So he'll learn the protections, he'll learn everything. And the one thing that I was curious about too was, looking back at what Dable did with Jackson Dart, are they going to do anything possibly that we're not accounting for that may give some relief to the whole offensive line issue? Just the way that Brian Dable calls plays and, schemes things a little differently. So that's it.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Connor. I think those are very good points of Cam Ward. Talent is part of the equation, but I think just having the right mentality, the right mindset is also part of it. And Cam Ward seems to have that drive to be great. And we'll see if that drive leads to progress this offseason. And I think it's also a good point about Brian Dable. He's probably going to have to scheme some things up because this offensive line does not look to be elite, to say the least.
Only so much scheming you can do if your offensive line's not good.
Right. 615-737-1025. The 615 Open Golf Tournament might be sold out, but you can bid on all kinds of awesome experiences to directly support Folds of Honor at 615open.com/auction. Have an unforgettable time while supporting a great cause. 615open.com/auction. We will wrap up the second hour of the show after this. Continue to take your thoughts on Cam Ward. We got lots to get into in hour number 3 as well. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Tune in for the Indy 500 race on 102.5 The Game this Sunday. Coverage begins at 10 a.m. and is brought to you by Twin Peaks, home of the 29-degree beer and the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix. We will also give away another pair of tickets to the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 coming up in hour number 3, so make sure you stay tuned for that. A couple of updates here. We're talking about Cam Ward, and Robert Saleh is at the podium right now getting ready for the first open OTA of the season. And he says Cam Ward's arm is perfectly healthy. And he says he's got some good zip, some good velocity on the football. So that is good news there. He also said that the Titans have removed all seed oils from their building. Interesting stuff there. I mean, I know that
I love that. I love that.
That's the big nutrition thing that's going on right now is that seed oils, it's
grapeseed, olive,
right.
Not good for you.
So apparently that has been a focus of the nutrition staff is they have removed all seed oils.
Derek Owings did a similar thing at Tennessee.
Really?
Well, he removed all the Gatorade because he's like, a player can drink 3 Gatorades and consume over 100 grams of added sugar. So everything in the building's all Gatorade Zero.
See, I think Gatorade Zero honestly tastes better than the regular.
It's not bad.
It's
solid. I've certainly enjoyed it more as I've gotten older. And also the other rule is anything that runs, swims, or flies is good to eat for your protein.
Interesting. The more you know.
We're just throwing out health
Parker,
tips.
yeah, there you go. Other stuff from Robert Saleh. He says that Jackson Slater primarily is going to compete at right guard, but will work at center as well to get a look at him. So, it's going to be a very interesting offseason here with Robert Saleh taking over year 1. Lots of moving pieces, young players trying to take big strides heading into the 2026 season. Wrapping up on the Cam Ward discussion, there's obviously zero guarantees with players, right? I mean, I don't think we saw nearly enough as a rookie to feel good about Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback, but I also don't think you saw enough bad that it's like, oh man, he's really on the hot seat this year. This is an important year for Cam Ward. And, we talked about it yesterday with Corey of like, week 1 is really important of starting with the Jets, going out there in front of the home crowd and putting on a good performance. Now, it doesn't mean everything, but getting that momentum going, getting off to a good start, I think is really important. The Will Levis comparison is always going to be there of Will Levis starting that 2024 season. That one play against the Bears sent him on a spiral that he just never really recovered from. Cam Ward needs to go out and get off to a good start. We talk about momentum, Parker. It's real. Momentum is real, and getting off to a good start would be great. But I'm excited to watch Cam Ward this year. I really do think that the national hype is starting to grow about him heading into year 2, and quarterback is going to be big for him. Not as a football player, but as a character in the NFL's reality show, right? I think a lot of fans nationally don't really think of Cam Ward that often, right? He was probably the least covered number 1 overall pick of all time. So I do think that is going to put some high expectations on him heading into year 2. There's going to be more eyes on him, but I think he's equipped to handle that, and we will have to see as the 2026 season approaches.
Yeah, he seemed to handle the Tubi documentary all right. So this is
a little different level.
Obviously going to be a lot different level, so we'll see. But in terms of national attention, I talked to Dan Graziano yesterday of ESPN and asked him, what's the buzz nationally around the Titans? And to be honest, I mean, this is no secret. There's not much.
Yeah.
Because when you're firing, and this is what Dan said, but when you're firing a general manager and head coach, you've had a major change year after year. Until something changes and there's a little bit more stability, the Titans probably won't get a lot of national attention. So Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons are the main talking points, and that's about it.
It is a big offseason for the Titans. Huge season in 2026 as the Titans look to take a step forward under Cam Ward, Robert Saleh, Mike Borgonzi, etc. 615-737-1025. We got lots more to get to in the final hour of the show. Speaking of the Titans trying to take a step, they are one of 8 teams who finished last in their division last year. Who could go worst to first this season? We will talk about that next. Also, Vanderbilt's season came to an end, most likely, yesterday in the SEC tournament, falling to Florida. Tennessee falls to Arkansas. They await their fate on Selection Monday. We'll talk some college baseball and a reunion in Baton Rouge. We will talk about that as well. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Final hour, next man up, 102.5. The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robert Saleh currently at the podium, getting ready for the first open practice of the offseason program. So that's why TD not with us for the full show today, but he did join us for the first 30 minutes. So if you missed that, you can go back and watch it on the YouTube or listen on the podcast. Make sure you check it out. Some good stuff from TD this morning. Lots of Titans talk. We're going to stick with football. It is a TD Thursday. People want their NFL talk when we have these Thursday shows. And I've had this question on like 4 grids for the last week, and we've never gotten to it, but I did want to touch on this. So every year, it seems like there is a team that goes from worst to first. Last place in the division the year before and ends up winning it. Last year, the Patriots did it and went all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm going to eliminate the Lions from this conversation because the Lions went 9-7. And yes, technically they were the 4th place finisher in the NFC North, but that is a team that has been a consistent playoff team and had a winning record last year. So obviously they have a good chance to possibly go worst to first. But the other teams, Jets, Browns, Titans, Raiders, and then in the NFC, Giants, Saints, and Cardinals. Is there any team for you, Parker, that stands out that could go worst to first?
Yeah, I'm going to, and this is kind of an easy one for me, I'm going to say the Saints in the NFC South, just because that division has been up for grabs at so many points throughout the years. You know, outside of when Drew Brees was there and when Tom Brady was in Tampa Bay, it seems like that division every year is up for grabs. You consider the start that Tampa Bay had to start off last year, and then how they just fell off a cliff after that point. Carolina making the playoffs at 8-9. I think the Saints have a really good chance to take a big jump this year. They got hot towards the end of the season. I think they believe they have an answer at quarterback in Tyler Shuck. They're getting more weapons around him. So I think the Saints are definitely a contender to go from worst to first.
Yeah, the Saints, I think that's one of the teams out of that list that I look at just because they did finish the season strong. Tyler Shuck is that's a big question mark to me. And I know he finished the season great, but I do wonder, is there more there, right? He's an older quarterback. Is what we saw last year pretty much what he's going to be, or is there growth potential for Tyler Shuck heading into year 2? But I would say the Saints definitely would be one of them. The Giants, I would look at just because of Harbaugh, and that roster is a little bit more complete than I think they've shown for the last couple of years. You look at the depth chart here, and especially in that front 7, they have invested so much draft capital and capital in general in the pass rush and the linebackers. Brian Burns, one of the best pass rushers in the league, finished second to Myles Garrett in sacks last year. Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't lived up to the hype of being a top 5 pick, but he's back there again. You've got Abdul Carter in year 2. You just drafted Arvell Reese. You bring in Tremaine Edmonds. Like, that defense could be pretty good. Javon Holland on the back end, Paulson Adebo, Greg Newsome. Like, there's some good players. And they draft Colton Hood, the Tennessee Volunteer, in the 2nd round. So that defense could be solid. Then on the offensive side, the Jackson Dart question is the big one, right? Is Jackson Dart, first off, going to be able to stay healthy? That's the big question. He puts his body in harm's way at a much higher rate than you should. He's not all that built as a quarterback. So can he stay on the field and can he take a jump? But if he does, if Jackson Dart is on the field for most of the season and he ends up being a middle of the pack to above average quarterback this year, that's a roster around him that I think could have success. Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, they bring in Isaiah Likely as weapons. They invested more in the offensive line with Francis Maui-Noah. Like, I do think the Giants in the NFC East could be competitive this year. A lot of that's just going to fall on whether Jackson Dart can stay healthy and take a step forward in year 2.
No, so here's the reason, because I thought about the Giants, but they're in a division with the Eagles, and they're in a division with the Cowboys, who, in the draft went all in on the defensive side of the ball. The offense, not going to have many questions. The defense is what's been the concern for Dallas. They have at least attempted to improve that side of the ball. So I see Dallas being a much improved team this year. Now, I am very high on the Giants. I'm very high on what John Harbaugh could do. I really like a lot of the roster pieces that they added to this team this year, but it's just hard for me to say in a division that you have the Eagles and the Cowboys, and then who knows what the Commanders can do if Jaden Daniels is healthy this year. It's hard for me to say the Giants.
That division in general, it's always a mess, right? Like they finally just ended that streak of 20 years in a row with a new champion without back-to-back division champions. Like I never know what's going to go on there. I would agree. I'd probably pick the Eagles, but the Cowboys are always decent, even if they're not great. And, if Dak Prescott stays healthy, they got a chance.
And if they hit on these draft picks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, getting Caleb Downs at 11 for them was great. They needed that. It is Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. Like that defense could be better this year. You got Quinnen Williams too from the trade with the Jets. So I am intrigued by the Cowboys too. But I would
Kenny
say
Clark, I thought, played well at points last year.
Yeah, like they've got more talent on the defensive side of the ball now. Obviously, you have weapons for Dak Prescott with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and Jake Ferguson. So that division in general could be a toss-up, although I would lean Eagles because, as you mentioned, the Commanders, if Jaden Daniels stays healthy and gets back to the form that he had as a rookie, that Commanders team could be good as well. I would say I don't believe in the Jets. I don't believe in the Browns. Quarterback there, I don't see a whole lot of growth potential, especially if Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback, which it seems like Todd Monken has alluded to. And I think the Cardinals are going to be the worst team in the league. So the other two are the Titans and Raiders. I think they're in similar boats. Like you've got some infrastructure to take a step forward. A lot of it just depends on the quarterback. Can Cam Ward take a step forward? Will Fernando Mendoza build off of what was a phenomenal final season at Indiana and hit the ground running as a rookie? I do think they are teams that have pieces, but they're just not complete yet. I wouldn't pick either of those teams to win their division, let alone make the playoffs. But I do think both the Titans and Raiders will be better than they were a year ago. Low bar at 3-14, but I think they will be better than they were in 2025.
No, I think so too. But it's just you look around and all the teams that finished worst, the Giants and the Saints are the only two teams I would feel comfortable saying at least have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Giants and Saints would be the two there.
I mean, if we're not saying the Lions.
Like Lions, of course, are number one. Then I would put the Giants and Saints in a tier. Then I think Titans and Raiders. And then I'd say Jets, Browns, and Cardinals. Almost zero chance for them to go worst to first. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on that. I didn't put this on the grid for today, but last night the news of Coach O coming back to LSU. I do want to hit on that a little bit coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's give something away here. We've got 2 more tickets to the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 at the Nashville Superspeedway next Saturday, May 30th. Be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. And again, you'll win a pair of tickets to the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 next Saturday, May 30th at Nashville Superspeedway. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Go Tigers.
Go
Coach O
Tigers.
is back in Baton Rouge. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelley with you for a few more segments on this Thursday. Chasing Big Joe coming up at the top of the hour. Man, I was stunned when I saw that tweet last night that Coach O was coming back to join Lane Kiffin's staff at LSU. Now, I think it's a good idea from Lane Kiffin of you're getting a guy that is clearly a very good recruiter. The fans still love him, despite all of Coach O's flaws and some of the things that got him fired off the field. The fans love him. And I think it's good for Lane Kiffin to, Lane Kiffin isn't exactly the most likable person. I think he's the coach that you love when he's on your team, but hate him anywhere else. And this is a good way to introduce yourself back to the fan base here a little bit by bringing back one of the all-time favorites in Coach O. Go Tigers. He is back in Baton Rouge, and I love it.
So, one, this is a extremely smart move by Lane Kiffin, but there are a couple reasons why this happened. One, Coach O worked with Lane Kiffin at several stops beforehand. He was with Lane Kiffin his lone season at Tennessee. He followed him to USC, was with him there, took over as the interim head coach when Lane Kiffin was canned. And here's the thing why, Brian Kelly didn't work out with LSU, because he didn't play into Louisiana. You have some of the best high school athletes in your backyard. And part of what makes LSU, Louisiana State, so special is the L in LSU, Louisiana. You got to play into that, because if the people of Louisiana love you, they will support you. They will give you money. You have to play into that. And Brian Kelly didn't do that. The LSU fans love Coach O. He was the head coach on that magical 2019 season.
One of the best teams of all time.
Bringing him back is one of the best things that Lane Kiffin could have done. The players will love playing for him as well.
I think it is hilarious that they brought him back. I mean, the 2019 season, one of the greatest teams ever. They went undefeated, had Joe Burrow with just a ridiculous year that got him drafted first overall. But then 2 years later, he got fired, 2021. Yeah.
Yep.
There was a lot of stuff that went on there with Ed Orgeron. I think, maybe he got a little bit too comfortable after he signed a lifetime extension. Did he not? After that 2019
I don't think
season,
so.
He didn't.
Maybe
I
I'm feel
wrong
like
I remember him signing.
I could be totally wrong on that.
I thought he got a lifetime contract and then they fired him 2 years later. Maybe he didn't. That must have been just a joke.
I feel like I would have remembered,
because for some reason I thought that he signed a lifetime contract. No, never mind. That's a joke. Yeah, I think I must have gotten at some point during that process. But yeah, he got fired literally less than 2 years after winning a national championship with
he
LSU.
was given a 6-year contract extension after the 2019 season.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw that, but I love Coach O. It was funny. I recently just rewatched The Blind Side, and it's so funny. As a kid, I didn't.
He was at Ole Miss.
He was Ole Miss's head coach who was recruiting Michael Orr. And it's like, when I was a kid, I didn't really understand who that was. And it's like, you rewatch it now and you're like, oh my goodness, that is Coach O that is standing in Sandra Bullock's living room.
And he's from Louisiana too. So like this was a home run decision, and it's not like he's in a prominent position, I mean, he is as an assistant.
Special advisor to the head coach.
Yeah, but that's one of the best things that Lane Kiffin could have done.
Yeah, special assistant to recruiting and defense. And I mean, he's going to go out and recruit Louisiana. And like you said, Louisiana, it's not Texas. Like you're not getting, and it's probably not South Florida in terms of the football talent that you're getting.
But it's pretty darn close.
It's right up there in terms of one of the best hotbeds for high school football talent in the entire country. And bringing in a Louisiana guy like Ed Orgeron, who a lot of these kids, they were growing up. It's crazy to say that because, it doesn't feel like that long ago that team won the national championship, but it was 6 or 7 years ago now. So a lot of these kids were 10 or 11 when that national championship happened. They remember Coach O and what he brought. That is a recruiting chip. the picture of Lane Kiffin and Ed Orgeron shaking hands in like the trophy room for LSU is hilarious too. I mean, talk about, we're going to get some content out of those two this year.
I cannot wait for September 19th.
Yeah.
Ole Miss and LSU. So here's my thing. I'll ask you. Do you think it's going to be worse for Lane Kiffin walking back into Oxford than it was when he walked into Knoxville in 21?
Yes.
You think it's going to be worse?
Yes. So I forget who said it, and you'll probably remember this. Somebody put out there that, there's a difference between Tennessee fans and Ole Miss fans. And I agree. Like Tennessee, and it might have been Chad Withrow. Somebody tweeted that out of like, Tennessee fans are on another level than Ole Miss fans. And I think that's true. Tennessee fans are rowdier. That is a better fan base than Ole Miss. Sorry, Rebels fans. Tennessee's fan base is better than Ole Miss's. But the hatred, I think, is different. Like, yes, he left Tennessee in the dark of night to go to USC, correct? Yeah. And yes, that stung, and Tennessee fans hated him for it, but it also wasn't super fresh at that point, right? It was years later that he returned back to Knoxville, and, they threw the golf balls at him and all that kind of, and the mustard and all that stuff.
They're going to have to call the National Guard for September 19th.
Yes.
Every officer in the state of Mississippi.
It is fresh. And they, not only did Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss, he left them just before they made a run in the playoff. Like, it is going to be bad. It is going to be bad for Lane Kiffin. And I saw Pat McAfee basically said, I don't know if they've officially announced it yet, but game day is going to Oxford that weekend.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's not really a surprise there. But 3 straight SEC game days to start the year. It's LSU, Texas, and Ole Miss most likely.
Yep.
But that is my most anticipated game of the college football season. And how could it not be? The Lane Kiffin is, love him or hate him, he is a character in college football, and he is one of the best ones that college football has to sell the story every single year. And that game is going to be unreal.
I have reserved that entire day, and I will not be moved off of it. And if you need me, just don't call. Don't text.
Well, so I think Vanderbilt plays NC State that day. I know that at First Bank Stadium. So I'm excited for that game too. Going to be the first real big test for the 2026 version of the Commodores. So I'll be out there at First Bank Stadium. I wouldn't hate a day game. Wouldn't hate it.
I might find a way to get down to Old Oxford, Mississippi for this.
I bet that. Let me check how much that ticket's going for.
Right on the 50-yard line.
Right, like that's got to be one of the most. I don't know how Ole Miss does their student tickets, but that's got to be like the lottery is going to be as full as it's ever been. They're going to have a line around the street. Let's see, Ole Miss football, LSU and Ole Miss. Oh my goodness. Give me a guess at what you think the cheapest ticket is for LSU.
It's 4 figures. Has to be.
No,
right?
it's not 4 figures.
I'm sorry.
The cheapest ticket.
I didn't hear you say cheapest. Okay. Cheapest.
Dead in price.
I'm going to say $500.
$570 is the cheapest ticket to get in. Actually, let me see. $554. $554 is the cheapest ticket. But you've got tickets. Ticket first row behind the LSU bench.
Oh my God.
Guess how much that is?
$4,000.
No, it's not that big. $1,700 a ticket though. It's going to be wild.
It is going to be toxic. And all week leading up to the game too.
I really hope Netflix is doing another SEC.
I haven't heard anything about that.
I haven't either, but it was last year at SEC kickoff when they really started marketing it because it was coming out in a couple of weeks. And I think they showed like an advanced screening of the first episode. I am praying that they're doing it again for this season and they are going to Oxford for that game because you just don't know what you're going to see, right? Like that is what I'm most excited about is, yeah, we might get a good football game. Ole Miss and LSU are both expected to be solid teams this year. But what is going to happen that night? I have no idea. Yeah, the Ole Miss police, the Oxford Police Department. Whew.
It's one of those things you just sit back on the couch and just watch. Watch as the chaos unfolds. Imagine if LSU walks in and wins that game too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What him going off the field would be. Well, either way, him walking off the field, he's going to
Onto the field, off the field.
There's going to be some things rained down on him. I don't
He's
know
going
what
to
it
be
will
called
be.
things that he's never been called in his life.
4312 has a text that I'm not going to read it. Going to keep it PG here, but I think you can imagine what he is claiming the student body is stocking up on to throw at him on the field. There was one that was thrown on the field at a Bills-Patriots game a couple of years ago. He says that he thinks that
I know exactly what
somebody's going to
about.
hit Kiffin with one of them because the student body is stocking up. So there you go. 615-737-1025. Just crazy story that Ed Orgeron is going back to LSU and joining Lane Kiffin's staff. But I think it's a good move.
But
I
it's
really
a
do.
great day when we get to talk about Coach O being back in college football. I love the guy. And I'm not an LSU fan. I love Coach O.
Coach O, Ed Orgeron, has his issues, right? And I think there's some grounds there to say that he's made some choices that you probably shouldn't have made in your life. But you can't help but love him. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. The best. Ed Orgeron back on the staff at LSU as a special assistant to recruiting and defense for Lane Kiffin. We'll take your thoughts on that. A couple more things to get to before we wrap up the show. Did want to talk about Vanderbilt and Tennessee, both falling in the SEC tournament yesterday. Vegas pulls off the upset in Denver yesterday in game one. The Golden Knights go up 1-0. What's working for the Golden Knights? 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 the game. Next man up 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley. Just got into the big news last night that Coach O is back. Ed Orgeron returning to LSU, going to be on staff for Lane Kiffin. And the LSU Tigers, love them or hate them, you're going to watch this here for sure. As they've loaded up in the portal as they typically do, and Lane Kiffin trying to chase a title in Baton Rouge after leaving Ole Miss just before their college football playoff run last year. We're not going to talk college football playoff expansion today, but I do have a topic for tomorrow when we have Connor Newton that I want to talk about. So we'll get into that. But I did want to look back at yesterday in Hoover, the SEC baseball tournament continuing. Vanderbilt and Tennessee both falling short yesterday. Commodores fell to Florida and the Volunteers losing to Arkansas. Tennessee going to be into the tournament again in year one under Josh Elander. So that's, I think that's, Parker, you would have a better feel for this. Is this a successful first season for Josh Elander? I mean, I know that typically Tennessee under Tony Vitello was in the conversation to go to Omaha, of course, won the national championship. But I would think being a 2 seed in a regional and, having an opportunity to possibly make a run, I feel like it's been a solid season for Josh Elander in year one.
I will say I'll lean yes. There are some things that I'd like to see different, but I mean, you think about when Ole Miss won the national title, whatever year that was, Mississippi State.
They were the last team in.
Yeah.
Ole Miss.
But there was a massive drop off the year after. Then with LSU this year, I mean, second to last in the SEC after winning the national championship? Yeah. There's not really been much of a drop off since Tennessee won the national championship 2 years ago. So I say that's credit to them. This is kind of a different situation because all these guys were Tony Vitello's guys. Josh Elander played his role in recruiting to get them to Knoxville, but they're Tony Vitello's guys. They committed to play for him. And then when he took the San Francisco job, then suddenly Josh Elander got thrust in the role. He liked to tinker with the lineup a lot, which will call into question some of the decisions, but you still make the tournament. You're a 2 seed. It's a good year.
Yeah, and they'll find out their fate on Monday. I agree with you that this year he at least kept the ship afloat, right? Like he had to take over late in the process with Tony Vitello taking the job with the Giants, and he kept the ship afloat. But a true verdict on Josh Elander as the head coach of Tennessee is going to come based on what he's able to do over the next 2 or 3 years as he recruits his own players and tries to get Tennessee back into the Omaha conversation, back into the national championship conversation. For Vanderbilt, obviously a disappointing season. Injuries and, just the pitching staff wasn't good enough throughout the year, at least the players that were healthy. And it looks like, again, the bracket's not out, but based on what we've seen and the resumes, looks like Vanderbilt not going to make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2005. That was David Price's freshman year was the last time that they missed the tournament. David Price has been retired for at least a couple of seasons now from the MLB. So it's been a long time since a Tim Corbin team has not reached the NCAA tournament. But I did like what Tim Corbin said in his post-game presser yesterday. He was asked about the new landscape of college sports. And we've talked about coaches who aren't willing to make the adjustments to the way college sports is trending now. And they're stuck in their ways. Tim Corbin said, it doesn't frustrate me. It's just a new challenge. And this is something that he wants to solve and he wants to get right. And Vanderbilt, as of right now, I believe has the number 1 recruiting class in the country coming in next year. Now, you got to get those guys to campus. The MLB draft is a variable that no one else has to deal with in any of their sports, really. Like, yeah, in hockey, you can have some of your players drafted, but guess what? They can still come to play for you. And in basketball, they have to play a year before they get to go into the draft. Football, they got to play 3. In baseball, you spend all this time recruiting these great players, and sometimes an MLB team throws a couple $1 million in a signing bonus at them, and it's like, all right, well, what do we do now? But I think Vanderbilt has shown that they're able to retain a lot of those guys, and you hope a lot of them make it to campus. I don't think this is an indication of the future for Vanderbilt baseball. I think it was a bad year that you dealt with injuries. Tim Corbin's going to make adjustments. And I don't think that this is a a trend of what's to come for Vanderbilt baseball. I do think that Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt will be back in the tournament next year. The question just becomes, can they start to make runs in the tournament again? I believe they haven't been out of the first round since 2019, or the regionals since 2019.
Which is crazy to think about.
Because 2021, they went to Oregon State and lost there.
Yep.
Then 2022, no. I might be missing a year in there.
Who was it the year before? Last year.
2021, they did make it out of regionals. They went to the College World Series that year and finished second. They lost in the championship series to Mississippi State. That's what it was. 2022, they lost at Oregon State. 23, they lost at home. 24,
I think Oregon won that regional.
Yes, Oregon won that regional. 24, they lost at Clemson. And then last year, of course, lost at home as the number 1 overall seed. So I think that's more concerning to me as a trend of Vanderbilt not being able to perform in the postseason than it is just this year. I view this as more of a blip on the radar. Tim Corbin deserves the benefit of the doubt with what he's been able to do during his time as the coach at Vanderbilt. But next year is going to be a very important year for Vanderbilt baseball to get back to the standard of what the Vandy boys have been for the past 2 decades.
And anybody trying to pile on Tim Corbin, he's the best coach in Vanderbilt athletics history. He made Vanderbilt baseball what it's nationally known for. So that's not Tim Corbin's not the issue. Now there will be, some things to figure out for next year. I wonder how much, the scholarship limit in baseball, NIL and transfer portal has affected the bullpen, because Tennessee's had a similar issue. Tennessee has about 2 really good starters and then about 1.5 good relievers.
Yeah.
That's been the issue with Vanderbilt.
That college baseball in general it's tough to build up pitching depth. Like, injuries can ravage your bullpen, your starting rotation, because it's just so thin. There's not enough good pitching to go around in college baseball. And when you do get a couple injuries like Vanderbilt had this year, it's like you're relying on freshmen, these 18, 19-year-olds, to come out and pitch high leverage situations for you. And sometimes a lot of them are very talented and have good stuff and are going to develop, but it's just like you're facing really talented hitters on the other side. And the 18-year-olds just aren't going to be consistent quite yet. And I'm excited to see how Tim Corbin adjusts after this, but obviously a disappointing season, and it'll be back to the drawing board in the transfer portal and trying to keep these elite high school prospects from going to the majors and going to the pros, and starting to build this Vandy boys program back up to the national championship contender it has been under Tim Corbin. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. The SEC tournament continuing throughout the weekend. 2 of the quarterfinals today, 2 tomorrow, semifinals Saturday, and then the championship game coming up on Sunday. We will wrap up the show after this. Any final thoughts that you have, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll also give our thoughts on pretty shocking result last night out in Denver. Vegas takes game 1 over the Avalanche. Could Colorado be on the ropes? And what has Vegas figured out after firing Bruce Cassidy and moving on to John Tortorella? We'll talk about that to wrap up the show. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you, finishing up the show on this Thursday. We had a tiny TD Thursday. Joined us for 30 minutes earlier on. He is out there at...
He does love the alliteration.
He does. That's why when we started this, it was going to be TD Tuesday, but we had to shuffle things around with Titans practice and all that kind of stuff. But he did join us for the first 30 minutes. If you want to listen back, good stuff on the Super Bowl coming to Nashville, and of course OTAs beginning this week. And the today's is open. I haven't seen anything yet, so practice must still be going on, but I'm sure we'll start to get some reports about, how everybody looked, who was lining up first at guard and center on the offensive line. So excited for that as well. We'll react to that tomorrow. Connor Newt going to be on the show with us as always on Fridays. Couple of things before we wrap up here. Aaron Rodgers says yesterday that he is calling it quits after this season. Now, I am going to stay in the camp of I will believe it when I see it on Aaron Rodgers retiring. I've kind of thought each of the last 2 seasons and now 3 were going to be his last, but it is fitting for Aaron Rodgers wanting to have his farewell tour this year, and his second to last stop will be right here in Nashville in week 17.
I'm not going to lie. I know Aaron Rodgers has done this, but I kind of believe him.
I think I do too. Like if I had to guess, I do think he's telling the truth that this is going to be his last year, but it's Aaron Rodgers. He has proven to be very unpredictable over the last 5 years. So when he doesn't strap it up for week 1 in 2027, I'll believe him. But he does say this is going to be his last year. So it'll be a little farewell tour for Aaron Rodgers heading into 2026. And again, the final game in Nissan Stadium will be with Aaron Rodgers. I had thought maybe, Parker, that there was a chance he would get benched at some point during the year. Like if things go south for the Steelers and you're 4-9, do you see what you got in Drew Aller? But I just don't know if Mike McCarthy would do that to Aaron Rodgers in his final season of just be like, hey, sorry, I know it's your last year. You're trying to finish it out, but we're going to see what the young guys got for the last 4 games, whether it's Drew Aller or Will Howard or whatever it is.
Well, I still believe even at his age and even with, he's not as spry as he once was, he's still better than what they have. So
yeah,
I don't even know who their backup option is going to be.
It's Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, and Drew Aller. They've got all.
And I've heard that they actually do like Will Howard.
Yeah. So we were having the conversation about Will Howard. I think it was earlier this week because you were talking about Aaron Rodgers signing the deal. And I hear Mike McCarthy say that they love Will Howard and feel like they can unlock something there. But why would you take another quarterback in the 3rd round if you believed in Will Howard? Your quarterback room was fine with Rodgers, Rudolph, and if you believe in Will Howard, then Will Howard. Like, that's a good trio to have if you're Mike McCarthy. Why not use a 3rd-round pick on something that could have helped you this year instead of another quarterback when you say you believe in the young guy you drafted last year? No idea. But
because I heard Schefter say that on Pat McAfee's show.
Me too.
But it doesn't add up because if you like Will Howard, then why would you draft Aller?
Right. When a 3rd-round pick.
Is that just a contingency plan in case Will Howard doesn't work out?
Yeah, like 3rd-round pick could help you this year. That if you are bringing Aaron Rodgers back to try and go for it this year, 3rd-round pick could have helped you. Instead, you got a guy who's going to sit on the bench all year. Let's go back to the phone lines quickly here. Chad is called in. Chad, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
You know what is crazy about the Aaron Rodgers thing is if you go back to when he started with the Packers, his first couple of years, this was all Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Brett Favre, it was the most unbelievable Brett Favre. In fact, that became, a meme before memes, about Favre retiring, retiring. And now we've got Aaron Rodgers, Favre 2.0. And the weirdest part of it is Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre didn't get along. And now, Aaron Rodgers turned into Brett Favre. So just kind of a crazy little dynamic there, fellas. Good stuff.
No, it is true, Chad. That's a good point. He learned from the best when it comes to trying to prolong all of his decisions and prolong his career deep into his 40s. The only way it could have been funnier is if he went from the Jets to the Vikings instead of the Jets to the Steelers, just completed the Brett Favre tour of spend most of your career with the Packers, win 1 Super Bowl, go to the Jets, then go to the Vikings and wrap it up. But, Anyway, it was it was not a surprise that he ended up signing again with the Steelers. I just don't get why he needed to drag it out so long. But anyway, he's announced that this is going to be his final season with the Steelers this year. Last night, we got 2 more playoff games in the NBA. Oklahoma City evened it up. They needed to do that. Thunder could not go down 0-2 heading back to San Antonio. So brings up a big game 3, Spurs and Thunder coming up later this week. And then a little bit of a shocker. Golden Knights and the Avalanche last night in Denver. And I know Cale Makar didn't play in that game, I don't believe. But Colorado, I'm starting to wonder what's going on there with Vegas. The Golden Knights, since firing Bruce Cassidy, have been a completely different team. They made a strong finish to win the division at the end of the regular season. Excuse me. Yeah, no, they did win the division. And then they end up making a run, beating Anaheim in the conference semis, up 1-0 on Colorado. No, I'm still going to pick the Avalanche to win the series, but stealing game 1 on the road in Denver, that was big. Huge for Vegas.
No, I was surprised. It has to open your eyes because Colorado's just been running through the field. Only lost 1 game to the Wild, didn't lose any to the Kings, and they've just been taking a sledgehammer to everybody. And then you lose game 1 on your home ice to a team that you probably shouldn't lose. Now, Vegas is good, but they're not Colorado. So it was definitely an eye-opener.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. I didn't get to watch the game, but I was keeping track of it on my phone.
I was more focused on Spurs Thunder.
Yeah, I got to say, the NBA, that is a huge win for the NBA, the game that they had back on Monday night, Thunder and Spurs. I feel like that got a lot of people invested in this series. I'm invested in this series now. So I do think this is really good for the NBA to have that kind of game that sparks interest in the NBA playoffs down the stretch here. But tonight, Hurricanes, Canadians start off their series, and I believe we get Cavs, Knicks game 2. So
at the Garden,
a couple other big games.
We'll see if the Cavs don't choke away another one.
That is such a gut punch, though, to be up 22 in the 4th quarter on the road in game 1 and not be able to close it out. So we'll see. I would pick the Knicks tonight, and I'm sticking with the Hurricanes. I think Carolina, that is a legitimate Stanley Cup team, and I think the way that they've been playing, they could end up going all the way. The question's going to be, are they going to be a little rusty tonight? It has been 12 days since their last game. The last game they played was on the 9th. So that one coming up tonight out there in Raleigh should be fun. That wraps up our show for the day. Been fun. Big thanks to TD for joining us early. We will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Connor Newt going to join us. We'll have some college football talk. We'll react to the open OTA for the Titans today. But stay tuned right here. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. You're on 102.5 The Game.